Coming up in episode 56.
She went on to proceed and ask us, do you guys have a makeup artist that's going to come and do your makeup? And I was jolted. I was like, makeup artist?
And I was
what are they going to do with us?
My response was like, no, were we supposed to bring them?
Welcome to another episode of The Little Radio Show. My name is Sandra Fernandez, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Juan, Alanis, and Anjelica Cazares. And we're bringing you small talk about big topics. This week we have a look back at the passing of Juan Gabriel a few weeks ago and how his music has influenced Latino music and international music altogether. We are marking our 1 year of podcasting with a shout out to one of our listeners and to one of our favorite podcasts. We also talk about Juan and Anjelica's first professional commercial production. They got to go out to Los Angeles to record a commercial, and we get to hear a little bit more about that. Just a reminder that you can catch us every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on hmsnetradio.org. Our show archives and the link to our iTunes and Stitcher channels are available at thelittleradioshow.com. The Little Radio Show is brought to you in partnership with juanofwords.com and hispanichouston.com. It saddens me very much to say that Juan Gabriel passed away. And at the point at which this runs, it'll be a few weeks after the fact, so it's old news to the rest of you, but it's not old news to us. It's very, very recent, and Juan Gabriel passed away. If you're asking who Juan Gabriel is, first of all, you're probably not Latino. And if you are Latino, then I have no hope for you whatsoever. Juan Gabriel is pretty much the biggest name in Latin music, in Latino music. His music was mostly ballads, but think Frank Sinatra. That kind of caliber of singer. Yes, that kind of caliber of singer. Think Frank Sinatra. Juan Gabriel, one of his albums has the distinction of being the best-selling album of all time in Mexico. I mean, like no one else had an album that sold more copies than that.
He has an incredible story. It's not very unique to Mexico, but he has an incredible story. A young, growing up. Do you guys know it? Maybe I'm going to quickly share. How about I do that? So. He was born to his mother, of course, and his mother couldn't take care of him, so she put him in the those centers for children. An orphanage. Mm-hmm. And he lived there and had hardship there, and then ran away from there, I think, at a very young age, and lived the streets of Ciudad Juarez, for years until he found his way to music.
Mm-hmm. So he was discovered. But he was also not only a musician, he was also a songwriter, because he did a lot of collaborations with a lot of different artists. Like he was very good friends with Rocío Dúrcal.
Oh yeah.
And a bunch of other artists. Yeah, and it was kind of a rite of passage to get, or a big honor to have Juan Gabriel write a song for you, or collaborate with you in some way. So I remember that. Like, it was forever a big deal when somebody, had the privilege of working with Juan Gabriel, that he would write a song for you. And, he was not, I think the other thing that was interesting about Juan Gabriel, and we were actually in Juarez when we were just happened to be driving, well, not in Juarez, we were driving through El Paso after, like,
I was like, we were in Juarez?
After he passed away. And it was interesting to see, like, all the shops were playing his music, all the radio stations were playing his music, and it was just a very big thing that happened, and everybody was very sentimental about it. But I think one of the things that was mentioned, that we heard that was mentioned, was about how his sexual orientation was.
I was gonna say that
something that was never openly came out and said, "Hey, I'm gay," but everybody kind of assumed, and everybody kind of knew. And it was like an open secret that that even though that's still kind of taboo in Mexico, people accepted him, and people were were fine with it because he was so talented.
Every time a reporter dared to ask him the question, "Are you gay?" he sidestepped it, and he would say stuff like, "My sexual orientation doesn't matter to my music," or "I am whatever I want to be," or he would say something to the effect of, "I am what you see." Something like that. But he never said he wasn't gay. I give him credit for that. He never actually lied about it.
Right.
But he never openly said, I'm gay. He just skirted the issue. And most reporters never really asked the question. But every once in a while, he would get one who would like push it a little. But by then, he was like, he's Juan Gabriel.
Right.
All he had to do was get up and leave the interview, which I've never heard of him doing.
Yeah.
But he was the youngest of 10 children, and his father was actually interned into a psychiatric facility. And as a result, his mom, couldn't take care of them. And
I gave the very compressed version of it, but yeah.
Yeah. And he started out in like, oh my God, dives. He started out at these little bitty nothing restaurants. Like, we wouldn't stop at them, that kind of restaurant.
Right.
And Juarez is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Even back then, was not.
Well, it was a port city. It was a port border town city.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
It is. So, my mom adored Juan Gabriel. Oh my goodness, yes. I've told a story before on the show about her one encounter with him. When we lived, she was about 8 months pregnant. And there was, Juan Gabriel came to Houston and did a concert. And back then, Latino artists came to Houston. They didn't do concerts at the big arenas. They did them at these little bitty rinky-dink nothing places. And so there was this place out in the East End. I think it was called Latin World, honestly. It was just a few miles from where we lived. My mom wanted to go so bad. My dad wouldn't take her because he thought it was going to be too much. They were in no way prepared. Blocks and blocks around the facility. They couldn't get cars in or out. They had to helicopter the guy in and out because the cars weren't getting through. My mom was so upset. The next day she had a flight. So she couldn't have been more than maybe 8 months pregnant, I guess. She had a flight to go home to where we were staying with our grandma. And she met him in the airport. Like, she got to see him in the airport. And she says, oh, God felt sorry for me because I didn't get to see him play. But to her, it was the highlight of, the entire year, the whatever. She got to meet Juan Gabriel.
Well, that's pretty amazing because, he's like I said, he's a big, huge celebrity, a big star that, kind of transcended generations because his music really... it's relatable to not only like our parents' generation, but it's also relatable to us, and to some degree, it's also relatable to even younger kids. And just when you think of Juan Gabriel, you think about like songs like "Querida," "Querida."
My favorite is
I can
"Hasta que
sing
te
that one.
conocí." With I love to hear it with the mariachi in the background when they do the version with the mariachi, and he had that voice that he could, just carry the tune by itself, but it was awesome.
And I love that, Amor Eterno.
Yes.
That was one of my favorites that he wrote, but I love the way that Rocío Dúrcal interpreted.
Yes.
And what I really enjoyed was when they would sing together.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people do the cover of Amor Eterno. No one can do it like she can.
No.
Well, like she could.
My favorite song is Querida. That one I can't hold a tune, but I can sing. Or where I can pretend to sing.
Now, do either of you remember El Noa Noa?
Yes.
That was the name of the place where he was discovered. El Noa Noa. Yes, in Juarez. So yeah. So that was one of his very first
And so many people
hits.
have sang that song now.
Yeah.
It's like a staple now.
It is, but as you said, it was a big deal to get Juan Gabriel to write a song for you. But according to Wikipedia, he's credited with writing over 1,700 songs.
Wow.
1,700 songs. Wow.
And not only was it a big deal to get a song written by him, but the other thing is every once in a while he would mentor a singer, usually a woman, honestly, and completely redo their career. Ana Gabriel is one example, and Rocío Dúrcal is another. I have seen old movies, because Rocío Dúrcal was Spanish, not even Mexican.
Right.
I've seen old movies with Rocío Dúrcal when she was younger, and the style of singing that she had, and it was completely different. And he helped her develop a new style that actually made her a much bigger star.
And she was one of the most accepted. She was one of the most celebrated Mexican singers, even though she wasn't a Mexican singer.
Even though she wasn't a Mexican singer, because she really, really, and I don't know, I don't think that this is a Juan Gabriel song, but with Rocío Dúrcal, my favorite is Las Guirnaldas.
Oh, yeah.
But Ana Gabriel, one of the things that he helped her do is actually to cement and solidify her style to where she got just much better after working with him. And I think that they did about two albums together. I'm not sure about Rocío Dúrcal.
But this is like Mexican music royalty we're talking about. Yes. All these names that we're throwing out there. These are like these are the big dogs, the ones that, you know, like have the, you know, trajectories that are their music's gonna live on for, you know, decades and decades because they're so good.
Well, his music, I think, is going to transcend very well into generations to come, because we will probably forever listen to the music, and so will happen. You know, we're going to instill this in younger generations, and it might just keep going. It's kind of a Selena thing, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's going to transcend the same way, I think.
Well, his again, and we say this a lot, he is going to be missed, but his influence will remain for a very long time. There is never going to be another Juan Gabriel.
Mm-hmm. Another Juanga. There's never going to be another Juanga.
There's never going to be another Juanga. It's not possible. The way that the music industry is set up now, it's just not a possibility. The other thing, there may be people out there with the same kind of talent, but they're never going to have the same kind of reach, unfortunately, and the same... I don't know, the same impact that he had, which is really, really a sad thing. So what we're going to do is we'll post some links to some of our favorite songs in the show notes, so you can go and you can see who we're talking about, or just so you can go through and tell us which of Juanga's songs are your favorite. If you're just tuning in, this is the Little Radio Show on hmsnetradio.org. So it turns out that we actually have listeners. Amazingly enough.
Yes.
We knew we had. We knew we were listening. Like, we knew we were our own listeners. We knew that for sure.
My mom listens.
That also we knew your mom listened also. But we actually have somebody out there who's besides our mothers and ourselves.
So I want to give a shout out to Danae, who wrote this wonderful write-up of us. She did a roundup of top Latino Hispanic podcasts to listen to. And she says in her blog post, which we will link to in the show notes, that since this is my all-time favorite podcast, I have to give them first billing on this.
Woohoo.
Listening to this show makes me feel like I'm sitting back home with old friends and chatting about everyday happenings, current events, and being Latino.
Just so you know, we didn't pay anybody for this.
I find myself having, because she wrote that she listens to the podcast when she's while she's running. I find myself having to slow down during my run sometimes to laugh at some of the silliness. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness, that's a great thing to note. I love hearing that people actually listen to the show. I love hearing that they like it. I even appreciate the constructive feedback that people hit mom give to me about how we can improve. But what I'm finding out, this is leading into a segue, is the topic that I have, is what I'm finding out is now that I can actually put a face to people who are listening to the show. I find myself wanting to go through and edit out portions going, oh no, I don't think I can leave that in there. Oh no, I don't think I can say that. Oh my goodness.
Are you censoring yourself, Sandra? Is that what you're doing?
I think that's actually what's happening, is I'm censoring myself, and since I edit the show, there's a very bad possibility of censoring everybody. Sorry,
and that's probably that's probably the best thing, because had it been me or Juan, we would leave all kinds of things in. And it's a good thing that Sandra produces the show, and she does a really good job, because obviously we're having listeners do it, so we greatly appreciate it.
Well, a friend of mine, and shout out to Kiki Oliphant of Creative Writing Podcast, recently did a recap of, this is a year a year since we've been doing, what I've learned about doing podcasting in a year. And as it turns out, this is, in fact, our 1-year anniversary podcast episode. Since the official launch of the podcast. Obviously, we had several episodes that were out before we did the launch party and etc. But September 3rd is our anniversary. And so as we go through and we take a look at back in 1 year of podcasting, Kiki did this thing where she did did one year of podcasting, and she's telling about the things that she learned, and then she told a story which I was driving while I was listening to the story, and I laughed so hard I almost ran my car off the road. Where she's telling the story about that she was doing an interview with someone, and it ran really, really long, and she couldn't she didn't feel that she could cut the interview short, but she really, really had to go pee. And at some point, she put the person on mute and peed in a cup. And I'm like, okay, there's a story I would absolutely probably never share about myself. And I told her this. I'm like, I cannot believe you said that on your podcast, that you had someone on mute and peed in a cup. And it was just the most interesting, it was just the most outrageous thing, but it was very, very candid. And so I honestly think that we censored ourselves more at the beginning than we do now.
Yeah,
yes.
That is very correct. What have you learned within the last year of podcasting?
I've learned that people will be more forgiving of our little moments of humanity on the show than we thought they would be. And so, for example, when we first started, I edited out every long pause, every deep breath that we took, and it took for frickin' ever. But now, and I don't know if the quality of the podcast has gone down, but I think the spontaneity and our personalities shine a little more by leaving in a lot of those things. I do still take out a lot of the ums because, dear Lord, if it were a drinking game, y'all would be sloshed by the end of the show. It really, I'm serious. I went through and I counted once, and it was like in a 5-minute period, there were 10 ums I had to take out.
I think one of the things that I learned for myself is I don't collect my thoughts before I talk. And so a lot of the times I'm finding myself talking about trying to find, like I'm doing right now, which is basically what I'm doing, is I try to take space by saying things that might be relevant but aren't too relevant. And so until I gather my thought and I know what I want to say, but I'm finding that it's good that we started the podcast because I do that in actual life. So I've learned to gather my thoughts. I lose it most of the time, right? I lose my thought most of the time, but to gather my thought so I at least know what I'm trying to convey or I'm trying to say, and especially in a group setting where it's 10 people or more, I'm like, damn it! Not only did I look like a complete dodo bird, in front of one person, but so like you said, I am a little bit more forgiving on my thoughts.
Well, that's good to hear. Juan, what have you learned in your last year of podcasting?
Nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
I was actually going to say that. I don't think I've learned anything. No. But I don't know. I think I've just learned to try to be more comfortable with being on the microphone. Because I think at the beginning I was very nervous and I was I kind of wanted to I was the opposite. I wanted to be very detailed about what I was going to say and very have very specific points that I was going to make. And, I think probably the biggest thing I'd say is just learning how to interact on the show together.
With each other?
Yeah, because I think when we first started, especially me, I had certain points that I wanted to make, and then I would be like, what? I didn't get to finish my point.
You know what? I found that we were talking on top of each other a lot more than we do now. And I think I find myself it's okay if I had nothing to say this for a podcast. If I had 3 sentences, I'm totally okay with that. I'll have an opportunity later and maybe, you know what I'm saying? And so I let the conversation flow as it is, as if we're sitting at you know how we had the conversation where we're actually sitting at dinner tables, having conversations. We kept playing around we need a podcast or whatever. But at dinner tables, we weren't talking on top of each other. So there was no point in us to do that while we were here. And I found I was doing that not only to you, Sandra, but to Juan. And I was like, I need to stop.
Well, two things. One is, yes, we do it at dinner. and clarification, we do talk over each other at dinner. And the second thing is...
You're going to have to leave that one in.
And the second thing is, we still do.
So that's how rumors get started.
It's going to be an on-running joke. That's what she said. One of those things.
Okay, funny. And the second thing is, we do still, as a person who has to edit the show, let me tell you that it's often interesting because we talk on top of each other all the time. And having to take things out for time, or because... I want to keep it for the digital extra or for an outtake episode or whatever. It doesn't work because we're talking on top of each other. So I'm finishing my thought, you're finishing your thought, and I am interjecting right on top of you. And I'm like, okay, so I either have to cut somebody off mid-sentence or just let that roll. And we do it all the time. Sweetie.
But do you think we allow it now more? Like, it just happens. I think sometimes I found myself, or maybe it was just my thought, that I would find myself like we're fighting more for the time, and now it's like, no, it's not so much more. But that's it's natural conversation at this point.
Yeah, at the beginning we were a little stilted. At the beginning, I think that we were more, I want to get the words absolutely right, and now we just sort of roll with it.
Yeah,
I think it's more that we've let our personalities through. Or that we're letting, or that is the personality of the show now, is just us.
Maybe it was at a moment where we were just kind of letting things, we weren't leaving room for interpretation. Maybe? Because we were trying to like get all thoughts out there, and now I think we are. And it turns out it's okay. It's okay because maybe we don't think the same way we did a year ago.
Well, and a year from now, I'd love to see where the show ends up. But in the meantime, thank you to we now have Danae, and we've got my mom, and
ourselves.
And the other people who pretend to listen to the show. We really appreciate it. And in the shameless self-promotion part of this show, I have a question for you. Will you take a moment and let us know if you enjoy the podcast? What do you like about it? What are we doing well, and what can we improve? Please send us a comment on Facebook or Twitter and tag us. We always appreciate feedback from our listeners. You can find links to all of our social channels on thelittleradioshow.com. Just a reminder, you can catch new episodes of The Little Radio Show on hmsnetradio.org every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Time.
So, if you don't know, I'm about to tell you a story. Me and Juan just came back from a road trip to Los Angeles, California, and it was a very long, extensive road trip. We've talked about road trips before, so that's not going to go into it, but there is a couple of things that we like to talk about that happened at the road trip and what we were actually doing in Los Angeles. Do you want to cover them in a little bit, what we did in Los Angeles?
So we went to Los Angeles. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing that happened. Like we weren't planning this trip. It just kind of came up. It was an opportunity we were asked to be in a production, and we didn't know, there was going to be like a full on like film quality production. So, we said, sure, we'll go, we'll travel over there. And so we made the trek over there. We get there on, I think it was a Saturday morning. Well, we get there and
we got there Friday night.
Well, we got I'm talking about the set.
Oh, the set. Yeah. Yes. So we drove in. We got there Friday night. Right. And at the set, they wanted us there by 11 a.m. But we had a conversation before we even showed up to the set. So during the conversation, a phone conversation, they were asking us things like...
oh, that's right.
Yeah. So they were asking us things like... they were just doing the rundown, the kind of shirt they wanted me to wear. They wanted Juan to wear and sort of be very casual, that kind of thing. And they started going into details like, so this is the shirt we want you to wear. Make sure it's not sheer. And I'm like, are they looking at my pictures? Are all my shirts sheer? Like, is that what that? Because I do happen, because it's so hot in Houston, so a lot of my shirts are very light, and they happen to be sheer. And that was one of the things they pointed out, or like, make sure the shirt is not sheer. And I was like, okay, got it. And then she went on to proceed and ask us, do you guys have a makeup artist that's going to come and do your makeup? And I was jolted. I was like, makeup artist.
And I was
What are they going to do with us?
My response was like, no, were we supposed to bring them?
No, our response was that.
And so then Angelica says, I don't need a makeup artist. Like, I can
Don't say that.
I can do my own makeup. And
no, I said, I do my makeup regularly, so I don't think I'm going to need one. I don't think that should be a problem. I was like, and now.
But then they said, and they're like, well, Juan, like, and I was like, well, I think I do need help because I don't do my makeup regularly, so I need some help.
Juan, do you need makeup tips?
I do.
Probably a little bit, but
And so then they said, well, there's going to be a makeup artist there. Let's just hold on to him so he can like, touch up Juan's face or whatever. And I was like, okay, thank you.
No, but you have to mention that you are not the kind of person like you. I would try to actually tweeze these little fuzzy hairs that he has between his eyebrows, and he does not allow me to come close with tweezers. This is the kind of man that Juan is. He just doesn't allow this kind of stuff. And so it was very awkward to watch him on that chair, like putting on makeup. Like I would see him and he's like looking at the guy like, oh my God.
And it wasn't like a little powder. No, it was like
they airbrush you.
It was like they
foundation.
They put liquid and then they put more liquid and then
goodness.
they put like more stuff on my face. Then they painted my lips and stuff. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, I can't wait to see this when it comes out.
But I will say afterwards, there was the two of us, and there was another guy who was in the production with us. Three of us took a picture, and I was like, "Damn, we look good with that."
So it was basically we were filming a commercial. We were filming a commercial, and it was so. It was a very. The experience was something else. We show up. It's in what is it? Valley Valley.
Oh, it was
in Los Angeles.
Yeah, this was our first drive all the way that way, but Los Angeles is a bunch of little
sectors
cities,
like San Bernardino,
like
Pasadena, and all kinds of like
to
things.
each other.
Yeah.
So there was like Valley. I forgot what it was, Valley City or something like that.
We were in Valley something. We were for the production. So we show up and we pull up in our car and we are scared. We are terrified. We're like, we have a rental car. Where are we gonna park? They're gonna tow the car and there's no way we're gonna be able to get back. And so we pull over. I'm like getting off, talking to a neighbor, and like, where can I park? Or how does parking work? And he's like, you park. I'm like, what do you mean you park? He's like, you just park anywhere. I was like, oh, so there's like no special permit? And he's like, no, you kind of just park your car. And I was like, oh, okay. So we park our car. And first of all, we pass by the house and they have these huge, like canvas white things like in front of the house that we're supposed to be at because they rented the house to do the commercial.
Oh, wow.
So it was a full on like production. They had sound guy. They had somebody who was in charge of like feeding us. There was a person who was in charge of props. That's all she did was props. And then they had a bunch of assistants. And then they had, it was a lot to take in. So when we passed by the house, I was like, whoa.
But
like,
what was funny is that
incredible.
we actually got a script. So we had a script a few days before. So
that we didn't stick to.
So, but we had a script. And on the drive there, we were like, okay, we printed it out. We're like, we need to like practice the script. So we're like driving and pretending like we're practicing the script or whatever. And I'm like, I've never like done a script. And so when I get there, my first question was like, do we need to know the entire script by memory? Because I'm assuming we're recording in parts.
Oh, yeah. Lord. So on your first acting gig, huh?
Pretty much. And
right. I'm an expert.
And so we get there and then they were like, when we were on set, and they decided to do the scene where we were having the most conversation first. So just kind of threw us in there. So we're like, okay. And so we're sitting at this breakfast table, and so we're just having a conversation. But then luckily the producer was like, you know what, we're just gonna keep it casual, and you guys just talk and like interact. And so it was kind of like this, like where we're just sitting around chatting with each other. And we had key points that we were supposed to hit, but it was interesting because at that point we were like, oh, like. So if it's just chatting, like we can do that.
No,
if it's just conversation, yeah. So it was a pretty cool experience to at least have done that once in our lifetime.
And of course, Boy was super jealous. He was like, "So where is this gonna be run? And who's gonna be watching this?"
Yeah, he thought we were losers. I mean, we know
like,
we
tell
are.
Them that if they need somebody for gaming, I'm available.
But it was fun. It was an interesting. It was a
good experience. I think everybody was great, and I think the video will be coming out like sometime in October. So when it does, we'll share it.
We'll link it
and share it with you guys and see how we did.
See, I think we did pretty bad, but hey, right? The experience is the one that counts.
Well, we can't wait to see it. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. We invite you to check out our iTunes and our Stitcher channels and leave us a rating or a review. You can find the link to both channels at thelittlерadioshow.com. Most new listeners of this show found out about it through a friend or a blog post. If you're someone who has told someone else about The Little Radio Show, thank you so much. Really, it means a lot to us. Keep telling your friends, and if you happen to write something about the show, send us a link or tag us somehow so we can share it.